Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel at NDN TV Nigeria. Click on the subscribe button and be the first to get notifications.
We begin today with a report on the flood situation in the Niger Delta. 3 major states in the region have been heavily impacted by the cascading floods. They are Delta, Bayelsa, and River states. Also, the single road that traverses key states of the Niger Delta, the east-west road, remains impassable as heavy currents from running waters have destroyed sections of the road. At the time of filing this report, water had risen several meters above the ground level, making it impossible for commuters to travel in light automobile vehicles to and from communities along the east-west road.
Oh, Nigeria!
Right in the middle of the road was a tanker laden with cooking gas, which had somersaulted due to high impact pressure from the surging water. In one corner of the road, a tipper had been demobilized by the ravaging flood. Commuters were left stranded.
I don't day here since more than 8 days. Without no food, everything, I just did.
Some road users who had expressed concern over the lack of safety, emergency services, and general safety on the heavily flooded east-west road were, however, relieved to see men of the Nigerian Navy, NNS Soro, who deployed trucks and boats to ferry stranded travelers in the flooded roads, as well as provide security on the road. Hoodlums who had mounted illegal roadblocks on the east-west road for extorting money from drivers and commuters were apprehended by officers of NNS Soro. Nwanesi Ikena was full of praise for the Nigerian Navy.
There is no police, there is no military army, there is no civil defense, none except Navy. So I commend them so well for all this. Executive Officer of NNS Soro, Commander Ifaichuku Nwabeoku, says the naval intervention on the road will continue until normalcy is restored.
We have been deployed here in the past 5 days, conducting ferry operations and humanitarian services for commuters who are stranded here. We moved them from Yenagoa to Port Harcourt and from Port Harcourt to Yenagoa. This operation has been coordinated to continue until normalcy is returned along the east-west road.
Now, from the east-west road, we take a look at the flood situation in the states. We commence with River State. Governor Nyesom Wike recently approved the sum of 1 billion naira as part of emergency measures to support flood victims in the state. Local governments in the state have since complimented government's effort with the establishment of temporary dwelling places for internally displaced persons in affected communities. At the Ihike IDP Center, housing around 300 persons, most of whom are women and children, supplies are said to be grossly inadequate to cater for their needs.
Like I'm speaking to you now, there are like 300 people there, and they'll just bring like 3 bags of gari, 6 bags of rice, let me say 40 cartons of indomie to not go anywhere, children everywhere, parents.
As the people try to hang on till the flood recedes, Favor Moses, an Ihike resident, fears that imminent hunger and starvation awaits them at the end of the flooding challenge this year.
I know that the government is helping somehow. But after this flood, there will be starvation, there will be famine, because the food in the farms have been destroyed.
And now on to Bayelsa State, which is the most heavily impacted state in the Niger Delta. Governor Doyediri, upon initial inspection of parts of the state affected by the floods, had approved a sum of 450 million naira to aid victims displaced by the floods. He also promised to quickly fix infrastructure damage by the ravaging floods. However, that was just the first few days of this flooding season. An update of the situation today is that 6 out of the 8 local government areas in Bayelsa State are submerged, and more of its infrastructure have been damaged, like the Amasoma Road leading to the Bayelsa Airport, which has been cut in two by the floods. Though the flood situation in Bayelsa State is evidently overwhelming, Governor Diri has risen to the challenge as he is out every day visiting communities, talking to his people and sustaining their hopes. In a statewide broadcast, Governor Diri appealed for help from the federal government and corporate organizations. His plea for assistance was re-echoed by the visiting presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, who was at the Oxbow Lake IDP Center last Saturday.
Look at children out of school. Look at in this difficult time and everything, all we can do is to call for support. So federal government should come and intervene as quickly as possible. Other agencies should come and intervene as quickly as possible.
Governor Doyediri was full of praise for Peter Obi, who is the first person to visit Bayelsa State, while reminding the federal government of the need to come to the aid of Bayelsa State.
Today I am here with a senior citizen of Nigeria, the first who has come to empathize and commiserate with the people of Bayelsa. Whilst Mr. President has given us hope, I want to thank you for still joining me to call on the federal government to show more empathy, to show love to the people of Bayelsa State. From where our resources are taken to Abuja to be allocated to the 36 states of Nigeria.
And now Delta State, where floods have affected 19 out of its 25 local government areas. Several communities have been submerged and thousands of people displaced. The state government's initial response was to ask communities and political appointees to liaise with their local government chairmen with a view to implementing relief measures in the state. However, after public outcry, the state governor, who was away on electioneering campaign activities, had to return and visit some of the IDP camps set up by the state government. However, majority of people could not access the IDP centers as they are trapped in their communities. Individual efforts, more than government action, have characterized the support process for victims of the floods in Delta State. Last week, Inside the Niger Delta brought you reports of donations from business tycoon Dr. Daniel Omoyibo, popularly known as Damotek, and politician Right Honorable Sheriff Oborewuri. In Okwagbe community, Ughelli South local government area, which is completely flooded, a community leader, Mrs. Regina Ofigo, popularly known as Madam Chinchin, has converted the only building that is not seriously affected by floods to a feeding station for anyone to freely come and feed. Due to the struggle for food, this little boy, who only got the local eba made out of cassava, had to manage the leftover from the soup bowl to feed himself. Over the years, periodic release of water from Lagdo Dam in northern Cameroon empties into tributaries of River Benue in north-central Nigeria and River Niger in the southern part of the country, causing perennial flooding of coastal states. In the wake of this year's floods, affected communities in the Niger Delta and elsewhere are calling on the federal government to find a permanent solution to what has become a recurring humanitarian emergency in the country.
Inside the Niger Delta,